She said, "I'm so stressed, I need a mental health weekend away by myself." I replied, "Your health comes first." Then I saw a charge for a couple's getaway package on our credit card. I didn't say a word. I just used my own mental health weekend to change the locks and put her things in the driveway. My girlfriend of 4 years, Emily, told me she needed a weekend away by herself for her mental health. I looked at her, saw the supposed strain in her eyes, and told her to take all the time she needed. Her health, I said, came first. The lie was so perfectly tailored for our times, so thoughtful, so completely immune to questioning. The truth, however, appeared 2 hours later as a notification from our credit card company. The charge was for $785 for a lover's weekend package at a spa resort 2 states over. For the last 6 months, our life had revolved around Emily's stress. She was overwhelmed at work, drained by her friends, and touched out by life in general. I tried to be the perfect, supportive partner. I took on more of the chores, did all the grocery shopping, and made sure dinner was ready when she got home. I'd listen for hours as she talked about her struggles, offering what I thought was helpful advice. I became an expert in running calming baths and giving reassuring shoulder rubs. Our life together became a project, and that project was managing Emily's fragile state of mind. I didn't mind at first. I loved her, and I believed in partnership. When one person is struggling, the other steps up. That's how it's supposed to work. But as the months wore on, I noticed a strange disconnect. For someone so supposedly drained and exhausted, she had plenty of energy for late-night texting sessions that made her smile at her phone, and for impromptu happy hours with a new, work friend named Greg. When I'd gently inquire, she'd say these were her only outlets, the few things keeping her sane. I felt guilty for even questioning it. So when she came to me last Tuesday with her big proposal, I was already primed to accept it. She sat me down, her face a mask of weary sincerity. Then, she said, her voice soft and fragile, "I think I need to get away, by myself, just for a weekend. I need to unplug completely, be alone with my thoughts, and just find my center again. No phone, no social media, just me and a book in nature." It sounded so reasonable, so healthy. "Of course," I said immediately, "whatever you need, where are you thinking of going?" "There's a little cabin retreat I found online." She said vaguely, "It's very rustic. The whole point is to have no distractions. So this weekend, I need you to understand. No news, no contact. I'll turn my phone off when I get there and turn it back on when I'm heading home Sunday afternoon. I need you to trust me on this." I agreed to everything. I told her I was proud of her for taking her mental health seriously. I helped her look up driving directions to a vague area in the mountains. I felt like a good, supportive boyfriend. 2 hours after she pitched her solo retreat, my phone buzzed. It was a fraud alert from our shared credit card, a card I primarily paid the bill for. The alert was for a large out-of-state purchase. I opened the app, ready to report a stolen number. And then I saw the charge. Whispering Pines Spa Resort, $785. My first thought was confusion. That wasn't a rustic cabin. I knew Whispering Pines, it was a luxury resort known for its romantic packages. I tapped on the transaction details. The line item description was right there, a digital dagger to the heart, couple's romantic getaway package. I felt the air leave my lungs. There was no anger, not at first, just a cold, silent and absolute clarity. The kind of clarity that feels like the world snapping into a sharp, brutal focus. Every late night, every secret text, every complaint about being stressed was instantly recontextualized. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a cover story. I went to the resort's website. I found the package. It included a king-size suite with a fireplace, champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries on arrival, a 90-minute couples massage, and private access to their hot springs. This wasn't a journey to find or center. This was a romantic vacation for two. I didn't call her. I didn't text her and demand an explanation. Her rule was no contact. And I decided in that moment to honor it with a religious-like devotion. She wanted a weekend free of distractions from her real life. I was going to make sure that was exactly what she got. I closed my laptop. My own mental health weekend was about to begin. The project was no longer managing Emily's stress. The project was excising Emily from my life. Update 1 Friday morning arrived. The performance was the hardest part. I had to play the role of the supportive, slightly sad boyfriend. I made her coffee, helped her pack her bag into her car and gave her a long hug. "Take care of yourself," I said, my voice sounding impressively steady. "Don't worry about anything here. Your health comes first." "Thank you for being so understanding," she said, kissing me. "I love you. I'll see you Sunday." I watched her drive away until her car was a speck down the street. Then I turned around, went back inside, and took a deep, clean breath. The house already felt quieter, lighter. The work could begin. My first call was to a 24-hour locksmith I found online. Within an hour, a friendly, professional guy was at my door. I had him replace every single lock on the house. The front door, the back door, the garage side door. He rekeyed the deadbolts and installed new, high-security knobs. I paid him in cash, and he handed me a set of shiny new tees that felt solid and real in my hand. The satisfying click of the new tea turning in the new lock for the first time was the true start of my recovery. Phase 2 was the purge. I went through the house room by room with the methodical efficiency of a moving crew. I started with the bathroom, sweeping all her makeup, creams, and hair products into a series of cardboard boxes. Then, the bedroom closet. Her clothes, her shoes, her ridiculous collection of designer bags I now realized were probably funded by our shared credit card. I didn't throw anything. I folded the clothes neatly. I wrapped the shoes in paper. This wasn't an act of rage. It was an act of sanitation. I was simply removing a contaminant from my environment. As I packed, I found little artifacts of her deceit. A receipt from a fancy restaurant in a city she'd never told me she'd visited, tucked into a coat pocket. A small, expensive-looking bracelet in a jewelry box that I had never seen before and certainly hadn't bought for her. Each discovery was another small confirmation, another layer of justification for what I was doing. It took the rest of Friday and most of Saturday. I packed up her books, her decorative pillows, the live laugh love signs she'd insisted on hanging in the kitchen. I was erasing her, one box at a time. I moved all 47 boxes into the garage, stacking them against the far wall. Then I started cleaning. I deep cleaned the entire house. I scrubbed floors, washed windows, and dusted surfaces that hadn't been touched in years. I rearranged the living room furniture back to the way I had it before she moved in. I reclaimed my space. By Saturday night, it felt like my house again. The air was different. It was the air of freedom. To ensure everything was handled correctly, I called my best friend Tom. I explained the situation briefly. He was a good friend. He didn't offer pointless advice. He just asked, "What do you need?" "I need a witness," I said, "and maybe a little help moving some boxes tomorrow morning." On Sunday morning, about 4 hours before Emily was due to return, Tom came over. Together, we moved all 47 boxes from the garage to the very end of my driveway, right next to the curb where the trash cans go. We arranged them in a neat, imposing pyramid. It was an undeniable statement. On top of the very last box, I placed a waterproof document sleeve. Inside was a single piece of paper. A printout of the credit card statement, with the charge from the Whispering Pines Spa and Resort, and the description, "Couple's Romantic Getaway Package," highlighted in bright yellow. Tom took a series of photos of the boxes in the driveway, documenting their condition and placement. "Just in case," he said. He was a good friend. He then came inside and we sat in my newly arranged living room, drank a beer, and waited. Update 2. At approximately 3:15 p.m. on Sunday, her car turned onto our street. I watched from the living room window, Tom sitting quietly across from me. She looked relaxed as she pulled into the driveway, a little sunburnt, with a placid smile on her face. Her mental health weekend had clearly been a great success. She got out of the car, stretched, and walked toward the front door, fumbling in her purse for her keys. The first sign of trouble was the key not fitting in the lock. I saw her try it once, twice, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. She tried the knob. It didn't turn. The annoyance morphed into confusion. She stepped back from the door, looking up at the house as if seeing it for the first time. And that's when she saw it. The mountain of her life piled at the end of the driveway. The walk from the front door to that pile of boxes was the best silent movie I've ever seen. Her pace was slow at first, hesitant. Then it quickened as the reality of what she was looking at began to sink in. She reached the first box, saw her own handwriting on the label, winter sweaters. She frantically tore it open. Then another, makeup. Then another, shoes. Her movements became frantic, a whirlwind of confusion and panic. Finally, she saw the document sleeve on the top box. She ripped it open and pulled out the highlighted credit card statement. She stared at it for a long, long time. Then her shoulders slumped and she collapsed onto the grass of the lawn, her face in her hands. A few minutes later, my phone rang. I put it on speaker. Tom leaned forward. The sound that came through was not a voice, but a raw, animalistic shriek. "Ben, what did you do? What is happening?" I took a sip of my beer before answering, my voice calm and quiet. "Hello, Emily. I see you're back. Did you have a relaxing weekend?" "My things. Why are my things in the driveway? I can't get in the house. What is going on?" I decided to have a mental health weekend of my own. I said, my tone still conversational. It was very clarifying. I did some cleaning, some rearranging. I realized that my mental health required a living space free of liars and clutter. So I decluttered. There was a choked sob on the other end. "You can't do this. This is insane. I live here." "No, you don't." I corrected her gently. "You stayed here. This is my house, Emily, and your stay is over." She immediately shifted gears from victim to aggressor. "I'm calling the police. You can't just throw me out. This is an illegal eviction. You should absolutely call them," I said, my voice turning hard and cold. "I'm sure they'll be very interested to hear your story. While you're at it, you can explain to them why you were trying to break into a house that you don't own. Tell them I have a witness with me. We'll wait." And she did. 20 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up. A public spectacle on our quiet suburban street. Neighbors peeked out from behind their curtains. 2 officers got out and spoke to a hysterical Emily. Then they walked up to my front door. I opened it before they could knock. Tom stood behind me. The officer was professional, but firm. "Sir, we have a complaint from this young lady that you've locked her out of her residence and thrown her property outside." I nodded. "Officer, this is my house," I said calmly, handing him a copy of my driver's license with the current address and a property tax bill. This woman was my girlfriend. She was a guest in my home. She is no longer welcome. As you can see, all of her personal belongings have been neatly and safely returned to her at the end of the driveway. Nothing has been damaged. The officer looked at my documents, then back at the mountain of boxes, then at the sobbing Emily. He sighed the sigh of a man who has seen this drama 1,000 times. He walked back to Emily and spoke to her for a few minutes. I couldn't hear what he said, but the outcome was clear. He couldn't force me to let her in. It was a civil matter. Defeated and publicly humiliated, Emily finally made a call. An hour later, a pickup truck arrived, driven by her father, who looked mortified, and they began the slow, shameful process of loading her entire life into the back of it, right there on the street for the whole world to see. Final update: it has been 4 months since my mental health weekend. The silence and peace in my house have been absolute. The locks are secure, the space is mine, and my life has improved in ways I couldn't have imagined. The story of Emily's things ending up in the driveway, complete with a police visit, made the rounds through our social circles. Her attempt to paint me as a monster fell apart when the details of the couple's getaway package came to light. It's hard to claim victimhood when you have a receipt for your betrayal. I eventually found out who the other man was. It was, as I suspected, her work friend, Greg, who was also married. I never did anything with that information. His life wasn't my problem to solve. My problem was Emily, and I had solved it. I heard through the grapevine that Greg's wife eventually found out anyway, and their lives became very complicated. Emily's life took the nosedive you'd expect. She had to move back in with her embarrassed parents. Without a comfortable home and a partner to subsidize her lifestyle, she had to face a reality she had been avoiding for years. Her lie about needing a weekend for her mental health was the most offensive part of it all. She co-opted the language of genuine struggle to provide cover for a cheap, sordid fling. She used a shield of therapy speak to hide a dagger of deceit. The final piece of business was the credit card. The bill came with the $785 charge from the resort right at the top. I paid the entire balance. Then I sent Emily a formal letter via registered mail. It contained a final, itemized copy of the bill, with a request for her to pay her half of the total balance from the last 3 months, including the full amount of the resort package she booked without my consent. I stated that if she chose not to pay, I would be happy to settle the matter in small claims court where the reason for the charge would be a matter of public record. 2 weeks later, a check for $1,842 arrived in my mailbox. There was no note. My mental health weekend was the best thing I ever did for myself. I identified a toxic element in my life, I isolated it, and I removed it completely. The process was clean, logical, and incredibly effective. My mind is clearer, my home is calmer, and my life is my own again. It turns out, sometimes the best therapy is just taking out the trash.